That is the nicest chicken. Ooh. Apparently we got two people in the chat. Wonder who they are. Who's here? Who's here? I say. How's my volume? Can everyone hear me? Can anyone hear me? Am I there? Can I be heard? Am I hearable? Voiceable? Boom, boom. I'll wait for some people to join the chat if anyone does. If anyone wants to join the stream, and watch how this crazy person does things again. It's always amusing watching a crazy person do stuff. Always. Ba-bam. Do a little talky about service prepping, stuff that I do, things that I do, the way that I do things, the crazy ways that I do things. Yo. Anyways, surface prep, key to making things seal. So that way things don't leaky. As you can see, I got two cylinder heads here. One's a cast iron, one's an aluminum. Pretty simple. And they're just ugly. And I've seen a lot of people that go for this thing all the time with one of these on them. Works great on cast iron. Good for cast iron. Aluminum, not so much. It grooves too much. And these tiny little micro grooves with gaskets and even gasket maker nowadays can cause small little minor leaks. And none of that, it just doesn't look pretty. So when I'm prepping stuff, if I got bulk cut to break off, I'll go for the good old wire brush to break out the bulk. And then if I got like a really stiff gasket that doesn't want to come off, I'll go for one of these. But when it comes to trying to make it look flat and level, I'll go for stuff like this. Things like this. I use these things all the time. And simple sandpaper, steel wool, simple little things. But I don't use this thing for the finished product. Me using this thing as a finished product, mostly on aluminum, leaves too much chance for gouging and damaging the surface. And it's really simple. When you're using something like this, just let the tool do the work. No pressure. Don't push on it. And the other trick, when you're using a power sander, 400 grit and higher. If you got a really nasty surface, start with 400 grit, work your way up to at least 1,000. I usually go 1,000. Now, you want to check your deck. Make sure that it's half decent before you start doing this. Because if it's really nasty, I'm going to tell you to go to the machine shop. Because you're not going to make this thing perfectly flat with this. But all you're going to do is you're going to take your little feeler gauge. Flip. You're going to take a good solid straight edge. You're going to put it along the edge. You're going to try to stick that. You're going to do it in multiple places. Like right here, I can get it under, but it barely goes under. So that's good. That's okay. We can live with that. Right now, we're at 0.04 millimeters. So, yeah. So you're going to go over your surface in multiple areas, and just check to see if you can get under. Find some high spots, find some low spots. You can look for scuffing and damaging on the surface. Most of this we can get out with 400 to 1000. And with cast iron, this is where I'll say you can start with this puppy, knock off the bolt, get the big chunkies off, and switch over. But when it comes to my final sand, I'm getting these things level, I'll go with a block plate. You can go for the smaller cylinder heads, you can just use a standard 8-9 inch. For the bigger cylinder heads, you're going to want to get yourself a nice at least 12 inch or 18 inch. And you're just going to go back and forward, no pressure. Let the paper do its own work. Nice and simple. Real simple. And in between sands, you're going to check. You're going to check to make sure that you're not gouging it too deep. And you're just going to work it slowly. Same thing can be done with these things. But like I said with these, always 400 grit and higher, nothing lower. And if you're going to do a final sand, make sure you got variable speed and turn the speed down nice and low so that way you don't gouge it. A nice slow motion. Don't push on the tool. Don't force the tool. Just let it run back and forth. Real simple. Now, another thing that I have a real pet peeve about is gaskets. A lot of gaskets don't need silicone under them because that creates another layer. So you got your surface, your gasket, and your other surface. Now that's a surface in between two surfaces. Second, you put another gasket in there, like put gasket maker underneath it. Now you're creating another surface. So now you got three surfaces. You got one surface that is not going to bond to that rubber gasket. So it will eventually leak out. And so when you're doing gaskets, you can tap the corners to hold your gasket in place if you need to with a thin amount, but don't do the whole parameter because that's just creating another layer that does not need to be there, and the gasket doesn't need. If your gasket isn't sealing properly, then there's something wrong with your surface or your surface prep. And if you are using just gasket maker, everyday gasket maker, put on an ample amount, and I'm going to show you here. So we're going to put on an ample amount, a nice amount right there, a nice little bead. You're going to take your surface, and if it's a bolt-on surface, you're just going to bolt it till it squishes a little bit. Now you see that gap there? You just bolt it till it's about like that. You're going to walk away for 10 minutes, let it set up. When it sets up, it's going to be harder for it to push out. You don't want it to push out, because if you push it out, tighten it down, like go and pull this thing apart, and you tighten it down too much, most of this gasket surface on a good flat smooth surface is just going to push right out, and you're just going to have a thin little film in there that's not going to be sealing anything. All I've done is just fill cracks in it. All I've done is just fill the gaps and cracks in it, but you haven't actually created a surface. Gasket maker is made to make a gasket, and the gasket doesn't squish out super flat. So you make it so that way you got at least 1/8 of an inch, let it set up, then do your final torque. Now you've got a nice barrier that will squish down, but still leave pressure pushing back. And that's how you do a proper gasketed joint. You don't just go and tighten it down and go, oh, that's going to work fine as everything oozes out the sides. Well, that's not going to seal, and that's not going to be a seal that's going to last. So gasket maker, just tighten up till you have about 1/8 of an inch gap. Walk away, let it set up, come back, finish, do your final torque. You're going to get a seal that's actually going to last a hell of a lot longer. Now, I know that I'm probably going to get a lot of mechanics in that, and most of the machine shops are going to go, no, don't ever do that, do what this guy's doing. You know what? I've been doing this for 42 years, and I've never had a gasket fail prematurely from installation. I've never had a gasket fail from installation. That's because I take time. Like, customers are paying me money to make sure their car is done right. And if I just go with this, over top of this aluminum, if I accidentally have it on the right angle and I put a big gouge in this thing, that gouge is never going to seal properly. I can even put gasket maker in there and level it out, but that's still going to be a weak point that leaks. This here is not a surface prep. This is a cleaning tool. This is like good for brake calipers, rotors, cast iron, knocking off the hard stuff. And when you finish, you're going to want to go with a high grit sandpaper. So nice and good. And you don't want a polished surface. A polished surface, the gasket material, your gasket will not seal to it properly, and gasket maker will not stick to it. A polished surface is not a good surface, mostly for your gasket maker and your RTV. You want a little, you want like 1,000 grit. 1,000 grit, 800 grit is more than a good enough finish for doing surfaces and mounting. So pretty much, these are the things that I use for doing my surfaces, and that I do cylinder heads in cab, and that I do blocks in cab. I just take my time. I check my decks continuously in between each pass with the sanders or sanding paper. I just make sure it's good. I always make sure, and I like to go minimum 0.04 millimeter. That's what I like going, because that any gasket will seal that. Anything more than that, not good enough for me. But that's my spec. 0.04 millimeters. Anyways, it's as simple as that. If you have any, you guys want to express your opinions, your views, feel free. Tell me how you like to do stuff. Share, give me your input on how you like to do stuff, what you figure is the best for you, what's worked best for you. For me, 42 years, I've never had a callback on a gasket. I've never had a failure on a gasket. And just patience. I see so many mechanics just go and grab this tool, whip her down real fast, slap it together, throw it in, torque it down. I see a lot of mechanics that take the gasket maker, they'll goof it on, they'll torque it right down off the bat, walk away, say it's done. Like, just slow down, take your time. Like, I know shops, we need to get the job done, we need them to get the job done, make the money, we got to get it out fast. But would you rather have it out fast and have peace of mind that it's not going to fail 2 months down the road, 3 months down the road, even a year down the road from your work, your craftsmanship? Or would you rather just take the time, and have that peace of mind? Like that's the thing. Is too many shops now are pushing this. We need to make money, get it in and out, in and out. 10 minutes is not going to hurt anyone. 10 minutes is not going to break the bank. 10 minutes isn't going to make you go broke. Anyways, that's just my opinions. That's my view. And these are the things that I use. Everyday tools that are easy to get your hands on. And these things don't cost much. You can usually pick these up for $2. And this one here I picked up a couple days ago because I couldn't find my nice rubber one. But I only paid $3 for it. Put your 400 grit on, work the deck, switch over to 600 grit, work the deck, do your checks, switch over to an 800 grit, check your deck. 800 grit will be good for a lot of stuff, but I'll go the extra mile, I'll throw 1,000 grit on there and I'll work it, check my deck in between each pass, make sure I'm not gouging in it, not taking it out of level. But if your deck is warped, you're going to put this thing on, put your straight arms in, and you put your feet. If you can see light under this thing, you're not going to fix that with any of these things. You're not going to fix that with any of it. You're going to send it to a machine shop. But a lot of surfaces, mostly the old cast iron surfaces, you'll be pretty good with just using these and getting it down. None of that, if you got some crunchy brake rotors, you can actually take your rotors. You can get 2 of these puppies, put some 400 grit on them, block the rear end, block the front end up or the rear end up, and you can actually start it, press these into it, and smooth out your surface. Or you can even use an orbital sander if you don't want it moving, and the rotation vibration will turn that rotor at a decent speed that you can actually not push onto it, just hold it down and let it do its work. But just anything, any surface can be cleaned up with these tools. Really nice, really level, really smooth. And they're easy tools to get hold of. But 5 minutes, 10 minutes of extra time, I guarantee that you do a better job. But the biggest thing I cannot stress more is gasket maker. Don't just put your gasket maker on there and torque the living hell out of it right off the bat. Tighten it up so you have an eighth of an inch gap. Let it set. Come back, do your final torque, and your gasketed seal will last longer. I see this on a lot of the new Fords, a lot of the new Chevys, and even Toyotas, where they've used RTV. They just go and slap the RTV on there, torque the beans out of it, and walk away from it. Had they just taken the time to let it set up on an eighth of an inch gap, those oil pan gaskets and valve covers would have never leaked. They would have lasted and held up better. And people say, "Oh, well, what about the pressure in the crankcase and that?" There's never more than 100 psi of pressure in any crankcase ever. Like, I think the highest I've ever seen is 23. But even at 100 psi, this stuff here with an eighth of an inch gap will not blow out. But at least there's a gasket in there and there's enough material in there that's given pushback on both surfaces, applying pressure to both surfaces evenly, maintaining a seal. That's the thing, gasket maker doesn't seal by gluing it together. It's there to make a surface between the two surfaces similar to a gasket. And a gasket doesn't squish out. It squishes in and puts pressure out on both sides, maintaining the surface. So anyways, that's my insanity and my crazy. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And I wish I probably didn't do a very good job of it, but I'm trying. And I'm doing my best to try and be a content creator here. But surface prep, 10 minutes of extra time, better job. And steel wool. Everyone's got to own the stuff. The stuff's really nice.